part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Chase With Podcast, a conversation on current events and culture. We are proudly part of the Press Play Podcast Network, empowering diverse voices to launch professional, engaging podcasts. And with me today, he is a podcast host, but he's also a former worship leader at Elevation Church for a decade. He's a singer, he's a songwriter, he's a producer. I have led many songs that you have had your hand in, you've written. Mack Brock, Mack, thank you for joining the show, man. I appreciate it.
Man, it's good to be here. Thanks for leading with podcast hosts. You know, I asked you to do that because that's my true calling right now.
Yeah, you host a podcast, good at sports. You host this with
Josh Baldwin.
Okay.
So Josh Baldwin's another worship leader. You've probably led a lot of his songs as well that you just didn't know the connection, but he's just another worship leader. So who better to talk about sports than two musicians at the church?
Right. Well, I want to talk about that podcast after the break, and we're going to play a fun game, Mack. But I want to spend a few moments talking about your calling, talking about the art of leading worship and just the privilege and just the honor it is that we get to do that. But I have to ask, Mack, dude, with a name like Mack Brock, was there any other profession that you were like, you've got to be like an action hero, or like, was it always worship and music ministry, or was there anything else that
it's a very sharp and concise name. No. So my dad is a pastor. I grew up in the church. I grew up, in the youth band. That's how I started. My mom's a musician. She's a drummer.
Okay.
She's an awesome drummer. She still plays drums at my dad's church.
That is incredible.
To this day. And so I grew up, in ministry pretty much my whole life, and started leading worship for the youth band. And that's kind of where it started for me.
Very cool. How did your parents make ministry and church such a positive experience? It seems like now it is, at least. Maybe it wasn't always the case, but what do you feel like because we have two kids, and I know you have a family. What are some things that you've picked up or learned that you think played an important role in making it a positive experience for you?
Man, that's such a good question. I don't know if I've ever even been asked that. I think my dad was so intentional about, me being a pastor's kid, my sister being a pastor's kid. My parents were both very intentional about not letting that be our identity, I guess. Not letting that be the thing that we were most known for at our church even. And so they were very intentional about that. They were very intentional about, making our faith our own, and we went to church a lot. Like I was at church all the time, but it was always, it was always with a community, and it was with our people. And it wasn't just like an isolated, trying to think of the word. Like it wasn't just like something to check off, It wasn't like church on Wednesday night, you got to be there. It was, this is our community, and these were our people. And so I think those two things stand out to me the most. And my dad is such a relational pastor. He leads, he preaches on Sunday, but he pastors people like nobody else that I know. And so our whole life was just surrounded by that, relational leadership.
Yeah. That is so encouraging to hear. Just like a love for people. And at the end of the day, when you're working in the church, and really whether it's a church, whether it's a bakery, it's just all about people. It's all about how you treat people, how you love people, how you handle hard situations or handle just like the unknowns that life throws at you. And so it's nice to know that, because you do hear some of these like really awful horror stories.
Right. I know.
Like kids who grew up in the church and they don't want anything to do with it, or they even like resent their parents because of it. And my wife and I are just like, we just want our kids to have the best experience at church. Doug Fields. So I'm also a student pastor, Mack, and Doug Fields is like this legendary student ministry guy from Saddleback. He's been in student ministry for a long time. And at their new church, one of his grandkids was going like I don't know if it was in his office or the pastor's office, to get like a donut that was only for like the staff or the volunteers.
Right.
And someone, here I'm telling Doug's story, I'm probably going to butcher it, but someone was like, oh, hey, those are only for leaders. And Doug was like, yeah, but if my grandson comes to church and he knows that I'm here all the time and he can get a donut and that's like a positive thing, then that's just one less like obstacle that we have to overcome. And then like seeing at a place that they're at a lot, at a place that requires a lot of really weird hours. And it's so nice to like, it's just encouraging to me that, hey, all right, keep people the main thing. And that'll go a long way with your family.
And I think that that's something that me and my wife talk a lot about, because, you know, I travel a lot leading worship at other churches across the country, that we have to fight so hard to not make church just the job of dad, you know, or the thing that makes dad go away, you know? Yeah. And so even bringing my kids into what I do and bringing, you know, my kids, similar to that story, like if my son wants to come to an event with me, just for the fact that he gets to hang in the green room and gets the snacks and gets to like feel a little bit like he's like special, that's awesome to me, you know? And I'll like lean into that and then connect the dots along the way. Yeah.
The green room. So a green room is a room backstage that whether it's the band or the worship team kind of gets to chill at and rest at while whether the pastor is wrapping up a message or starting announcements or whatever it is. It's just a room that a band gets to go, and it's just like them. It's a safe place. They get to kind of chill out, and they wait until they're called back up on stage. Green rooms are great. Right now, my office is our green room. So I have like my desk, my work area, but then like a couch and a little like counter that we have all sorts of snacks and goodies on. What's your favorite? What's your go-to green room like snack? Like not that
man. So because I travel so much and I have like in my rider, you know, maybe have like these snacks, but the biggest thing on my rider is please do not put any sweets in my green room, because I have no self-control. And if I get into a green room and it's like filled with like, you know, candy and candy bars, I'm going to eat them. And just so that's my biggest thing, is I just need to not have certain things because I won't be able to stop myself.
Yeah. Overconsume. You don't want to like be a glutton in like the green room and like come out. You got like Reese's chocolate on your face and it'd be bad. Mack, you how long have you been in worship ministry, music ministry? I mean, full time after like the youth group stuff.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much since college. Like when I was in college is kind of when I started primarily leading worship. I grew up playing in bands and, you know, traveling, doing all that stuff. But in college is when I started leading at churches and, you know, really getting involved in the ministries that I was a part of. And it's interesting, for the longest time, I didn't want to do ministry, you know, and it wasn't out of a heart of rebellion or anything like that. It was just, I don't know. I wanted to do something else. I wanted to either do like other music, or I wanted to just produce music, or I wanted to be in the music industry, like business part.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it was kind of, worship was always in front of me. It was always something that I could do. And so I just did it. And part of the grace of God on my life is that he continued to let me do that even when my heart wasn't fully invested into worship. I don't know why he did that. Very, very grateful that he didn't just choose somebody else.
I've heard people share this kind of similar thought, and I felt it in my life almost like a leash that God would let me kind of explore or check things out to a certain extent, but at some point that leash would like, oh no, this is like God the Father, right, is saying, hey, this is like, remember how I've made you where you need to be. And so I've totally felt that tug, Mack, on my life as well. Yeah.
And it wasn't until like my probably like mid-20s, I'd already been on staff at Elevation for several years, that a switch in my heart flipped of worship leading wasn't just my job, or that wasn't like a means to an end to songwrite and produce. Leading worship like was my calling. And it was like, that's when the Lord kind of just, I don't know, allowed me to receive that and to say like, okay, this is a lot bigger than just something that I do as my job. This is my anointing. This is what I'm called to do. This is what, this is the heartbeat of my life.
There's a really unique confidence like from that place rather than,
right.
Hey, like I happen to be here, or I can sing, I can lead. So this is what I'm going to do. And I love it. But there's a really unique confidence in, this is what God has called me to. And this is what I'm walking in.
That is such a good point. And that's something that I talk to worship leaders all the time about. Cause I think that in general, I think that there's like an insecurity that comes with musicians, but I think that there is so much insecurity in worship ministry these days. I don't totally know where it comes from. Maybe it's like a social media thing or whatever, but there's such a, I don't know, like a confidence lacking spirit, I think, in a lot of churches and a lot of church like worship ministries. And one thing that I try to tell worship leaders all the time is if you are called to something, if the Lord has like put you on that platform and he has deposited in you an anointing to do this job, if nothing else, be confident in that.
Yeah.
And use that to lead with authority, not leave, kind of back-footed with a timid spirit, but lead with authority, because that is what he has placed you and called you to do.
And I'm wondering if there's not like this, well, I want to be careful not to be prideful or like overzealous or like annoyingly as a leader, like, because I think with being in this position of worship leader, there's like, oh, this person's showy or this person's doing this. And maybe there's like this mixture of, I want to be overly humble and overly timid, or I don't know. But it is a really, really weird spot. And I hear what you're saying for sure.
Man, there's such a big difference between like arrogance and confidence.
Yes.
And I don't need any help with adding insecurities in my life. I have plenty of insecurities and plenty of things that I know that I'm very bad at. But the one thing that I will say, like, I am confident in is I'm confident in my calling as a worship leader. Yeah. And so when I am leading worship, there's still times that maybe I get nervous, or maybe I have like a weird, a flutter or something. Maybe if it's like a song that I haven't led a ton, or I don't know, but I am confident that I'm doing a job that is assigned to me, and I can walk in that confidence.
Did you grow up in North Carolina? Is that where your dad pastored?
South Carolina.
Okay.
So in Columbia, South Carolina, and then we've been in Charlotte for the last 16 years.
Cool. I've been in full-time ministry 13 years, and we started in Salisbury, North Carolina, just north of Charlotte.
Okay.
And we were there for 5 years. We were at a 200, 300 size church. And I was hired in 2009, and they said, Chase, we want you to come on, and we want you to start and lead our contemporary service, because they were doing like this blended thing. And they're like, it's just like, no one's happy. They're like, so can you just come and start this? And I was like, oh, and Elevation always had a presence there.
Yeah.
What is it like to hear someone lead a song that you've had your hand in, but they just butcher the song? Is that hard for you to like, man,
that's not where I thought you were going. Man, I will say this genuinely, that I'm always so blessed to hear somebody lead a song that I was a writer on, or a song that I've done or had a hand in, that it really is a gift. And there's definitely times that, you might be like, oh, they didn't quite do that one. They didn't quite hit that note. But I really am like so grateful every time I hear that, even if it is like kind of a bad version of it. I'm like, that's awesome. And what a gift that is.
Because I think back, just that time, 2009 contemporary worship is way different than 2022 contemporary worship. Like, we were like listening to whether it's something that you guys were doing or Hillsong, and like, oh, what chord was that? Like, we were trying to type out our own like chord charts at that time. And I just have to think that, like, man, I'm sure in our like heart of like worship and trying to do our best, like if someone were to hear like, man, they're really trying hard, or like that would be a really interesting spot to be in. Man, Elevation had such a big splash, man. How was it in the moment of realizing that God's like showing favor and blessing, just like trying to like either manage expectations or like being on that wild ride? Because I think that it
was a wild ride.
I don't think a lot of people have that. That's not the traditional worship pastor experience.
Right.
Or worship leader
Yeah,
experience.
it was such a, man, I was on staff there for 10 years, and it's weird to even say on staff there, because it wasn't like that was just a job. That was our life, and that was like what we were dedicated to and invested everything to that movement and that ministry. And it was amazing to be a part of. It was amazing to see. I mean, a lot of it was just hanging on for dear life, you know, and a lot of it was like, I don't really know what we're doing, but we're learning as we go. Yeah. And so to learn as you go while it's growing so fast is a little bit scary. But we did it, you know, and we survived the ride. And then when the Lord called us out of that, we felt like we had to be obedient to that. And much like when I talk about the assignment, you know, feeling like I'm assigned to lead worship, that I can walk in that confidently. That was kind of the way we felt when the Lord asked us to step away from Elevation, was your assignment's done here, you know? Yeah. And there was a big part of me that was like, oh, I don't think so. Let's, you know, and I was holding on tight. But then ultimately like really felt like the Lord say, no, like you need to let this go and step away. And so that's what we did.
That's incredible, man. That takes a lot of courage and obedience, because that's a lot of unknowns, right? It's a lot of just things that you're not sure. Any transition,
all unknowns.
Yeah. And just, you've seen God be faithful in that unknown. Yeah,
for sure. It's been such a gift to see how the Lord has continued to lead my family and my wife and myself in all the unknown. You know, like that is such a, we talk about walking in faith. Like sometimes we have these moments in our life where we have to be obedient and like make a decision in faith. But it's not just like a one-time thing. Yeah. You know, it's like a daily thing. It's a seasonal thing of like continuing to see the Lord's faithfulness in your life, and just being aware of that has been really special for us.
In this season, do you find yourself receiving worship more, or do you still have opportunities? Are you still leading somewhere on Sunday morning? What's your like traditional weekly service like look like?
Yeah, so we're involved at a church called Transformation Church in Charlotte, Pastor Derwin Gray. And that has been a huge gift to us as a family. But then I also travel a lot and lead worship a lot for, you know, conferences or worship nights, or sometimes, you know, churches on Sunday morning. And so that's a gift as well. It's been amazing to see. I love to see God's church all over the place, and to see just the different variations of it and the different
beautiful,
you know, atmospheres that they are. Yeah. It's really cool.
I struggle sometimes, whether it's at a conference or maybe it's a Sunday that I'm not leading at our church, or at a retreat, when I'm not the one who's like leading or involved. It can be really difficult for me to.
You like analyzing all the time?
Yeah, I am. It can be really, really hard.
Yeah. I feel like, I used to be very much that way, and I don't know what changed. I don't know what changed in me that I'm not that way as much anymore. Yeah. I think, I don't know, even going back to your question about, is it weird seeing people like butcher a song that I wrote? There really is something. I've been in so many different environments and so many different types of churches, and have been a part of like really, really great musicians, and then really musicians that maybe shouldn't be on the stage. That I don't know, it's changed my perspective of like how I can worship. Yeah. And I do feel, I don't know, I feel like I've been like released a little bit from that I used to be hypercritical or
Mhm.
hyper analytical about everything. And
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm not as much anymore. Maybe it's just I'm getting old.
I had a mixture of like being analytical, but also just wanting to be a part of that, just because it is
Yeah.
such a privilege to be in that spot, to lead and
Yeah.
like, to lead and look out and see the hundreds of faces and to see them worship and to watch them worship, it is a
Yeah, it's
really
so
unique,
cool.
really unique spot. I will say, last summer, I was at a conference and I found myself just like, I wasn't present in the moment. I wasn't, like engaged in the right. I was just like, oh, I just want to be a part of that. Oh man, wouldn't it be cool if I did this? And God wrecked me, Mac. And he took me to the Mount of Transfiguration, and I found myself being like a Peter. Peter in that moment wanted to be a part of what, Jesus was being a part of. He's like, oh, let me do this. Let me build this shelter. Let me do something. And God was like, no, dude, you just need to be quiet and just receive
Yeah.
and to worship that. And I could take you to that spot I was in this auditorium, and it just like it wrecked me, because I found myself being a Peter and missing what incredible things God was trying to do or trying to show me. And here I was trying to be like, oh, I can help. I can do this. I can do that. It's like, no, dude, you just need to chill.
That's so good, man.
I feel
it's such
like
a human nature thing for
Mhm.
us to it's always in our nature to like either want what we can't have or want to be a part of this thing that we're not a part of. And
Mhm.
and it's such a disease in our spirit that that just eats away at like the joy of the things that we do have,
Mhm.
It's so, I don't know. I hate that we're wired that way.
Yeah.
And we always have to kind of like fight against that.
Mhm. That has definitely helped me. And I've noticed since then, it's like that just keeps coming to my mind. This keeps coming to my mind. And so I know that because I've talked about this with some other worship leaders. But I feel like, especially whether it's like, oh man, that's not how I wrote that song, or wait, you missed this part. I
Right.
really unique for you.
You know what's funny is I rarely now that you say that, it is funny. I don't think about, if someone's like playing the song poorly or just like doesn't sound great, I usually don't analyze that. If they're playing it wrong, I do analyze that part of it. And I'm like, no, that's not the chord progression, or that's not the melody. I
Right.
have felt that, I will say.
Oh, I'm sure that's so difficult. Does arrangement bother you as well? Or is it just like the theory part of it? Like, that's not how it's supposed to go.
Sometimes the arrangement bothers me too, because I'm like, no, like you're missing the progression of the song or the dynamic of it, but it comes with the territory.
Right. Yeah. Oh man, that is so well. Hey, let's take a quick break. I want to play this really fun game I've never played before with you, Mac. After the break, I call it the worship team position fantasy draft. We both love sports, and so I think it's going to be fun. I want to talk a little bit more about worship. Stick around, Mack Brock on the Chase Smith podcast. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. Backed by popular demand, I'm excited to let you know that new episodes of the Hyman Podcast will drop every other Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're going to continue the conversations we started last season and keep having those hard conversations. There is so much in store for you this season, and I'm excited to share it with you. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single moment. The Hyman Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of Producing While Asian. Join us in Season 2 for more conversations with actors, artists, producers, and more from Broadway, Hollywood, and beyond, every other Wednesday on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us and then listen in.
We are excited to announce that we are joining the Press Play Podcast Network. The Krypton Report podcast is dedicated to all things Superman, Supergirl, and the planet Krypton. We discuss movies, TV, game, comics, and all things DC.
So join me, Tyler, with my co-host James and Jania.
So join us as we explore DC's multiverse.
Look for Krypton Report on all social media platforms.
All right, we are back with Mack Brock, worship leader extraordinaire, here with me, and just having so much fun. Mack, I want to just continue to have fun because we hit on a lot of worship things, topics that I wanted to pick your brain about and just kind of have a conversation on. I want to play this game with you because I think it's going to be a ton of fun, and I can't wait to hear your answers. This game is called the Worship Team Position Fantasy Draft, and how this works is Mack and I, we're not going to pick people. We're not going to pick names. We're going to pick positions on a worship team, and I'm not going to put any limits. I'm not going to put any parameters. It's just Mack and your experience and my experience, whatever position on a worship team you've had, you get to pick that position. And in this draft, Mack, they're going to be the very best position person. So you might be thinking of a person or a name, but we're just going to make a position. We're going to do snake style. So you get first pick, and then I'll get two, and then you'll get two, and we'll do that. But once something's been picked, you can't pick that again.
Okay. So when you were explaining this to me earlier, I thought that you were going to make me say actual names of people, like who's my favorite worship leader, who's my favorite drummer. And I was going through this panic mode of all right, who am I going to offend?
Oh my gosh. No.
So I'm glad that it's just the positional draft.
Just because I think this is going to speak to a different thing than just names, right? I think this speaks to
right.
A little bit of composition, a little bit of just how a makeup of a team.
And so in this snake draft, is worship leader a position?
Sure.
Or is that okay? So that's not a given. Or are we the worship leader and we've got to build our team?
That's a really good question. So let's do it. If you're the worship leader of your team and I'm the worship leader of my team.
So we've already got the worship leader set because that has to be number one if it's not set. Okay.
But
so
I'm not there's literally no rules. So if you want to have another worship leader, that's something you can throw to.
Yeah, that's a good call.
All right. So we'll just go for a couple rounds here. And again, this might crash and burn. I don't think it's going to. I think in my brain, I think it's going to be open up some fun conversations. But Mack, with the first pick of the worship team position fantasy draft, what position are you taking?
Number one pick, I am picking a drummer.
No way. I was going to go for a drummer.
You got to have a great drummer.
Oh my gosh.
You can get by with a lot, but if you don't have a drummer that can stay on time, it's going to be bad.
You really feel as a worship leader, a really incredible drummer, and it can struggle sometimes when someone
listen with the way multi-tracks is now, all you need is a drummer and then all the tracks on multi-tracks and you can get the job done. So that feels like an obvious number one.
All right. So here's the thing. I can no longer pick a drummer on my team. Right. They might be a serviceable drummer, but they're not going to be the number one drummer. Okay.
Cajon. The cajon is the max that you can get right now.
The cajon, that's fair. Or the percussion tree. Do a percussion tree.
With the chimes.
Okay. I think I get two picks. So I'm going to go keys player and a female vocalist.
Yeah, that's good. Keys. Yeah, it's hard to. Well, hold on. Are you doing a piano player or are you doing a synth pad guy?
So I just
get into
keys.
Those details.
I just said I don't want to.
That's
if you want to do a. This is just key.
A little bit of a loophole, if I'm being honest, Chase.
You can go for a loophole. Go for it. Go for it. We'll see what happens here, man. I just, I want to keep it vague because I feel like if I have if Keys is like the second pick of this draft, then they're going to be able to do a lot.
Yeah. Okay, next up then I'm going to go with a bass player.
Yeah, see,
and this is no shade. This is no shade on all my electric guitar players because I love you guys. You guys add so much. But if I've got a drummer already, then I need a bass player. So at least if I'm flowing, I can at least have their backing. If I'm flowing and I just have a drummer and an electric guitar player, there's going to be some lacking in the low end department, and it's not gonna be pleasant for anybody.
I almost took Keys because of the percussion element of the bass, like with rhythm, but I feel like anyway. So okay, I love that pick, man. I can't go wrong.
Okay,
with that.
so bass player, and then right after bass player, then I'll go with my electric guitarist.
Okay,
and so you guys aren't lesser. I see you. You know, you are cherished in God's eyes as well. But I'm going bass and then electric guitar player.
All right. I have two picks here. I want to go with another acoustic guitar player, which would free me up to. I overplay. I admit. Is this a safe place? Is this a safe place?
Yeah.
I overplay on the guitar, man. I overplay. And so I feel like
you're bringing on an acoustic guitar player just as accountability.
Yeah. But also, like I don't need to be the one playing all the time. If I can pastor a moment, then I'm not worrying about anything dropping. That we already got the keys kind of. So I'm going to take another acoustic player, and then I'm going to sweep in here, Mac. I'm going to take a sound engineer.
Oh man. See, you tricked me. I didn't know that was an option.
You want to only stick to instruments?
Right.
I can go back. I could take. You want to just stick to like the stage?
No, stick with your sound engineer, and then I'll just be stuck running back and forth, trying to make sure the mix is good, and then just praying it all goes well when we start. All right. Well, then
you'll have a sound engineer. They might be eating Cheetos and like having a drink, but
all right. I'm going with a choir. So let's take a look at this. I got drums, bass, keys, or no, I don't have keys. Drums, bass, guitar, choir. Like I'm kind of set. I could keep picking.
Your next pick's going to be a video crew, and you're just going to start posting stuff to YouTube, and then you're good, man.
Yeah, my next pick is my social media guy to capture all the highlights.
Oh man, no, you're serious. All right, I love it. 9, that's incredible. Okay, all right, let's each get I think that's good. You think that's good?
Yeah, I think that's good. I want you to list off your worship team right now.
Yeah, so my team, I got keys, a female vocalist, an acoustic guitar player, and a sound engineer. We're going kumbaya. We're just going to be by the campfire.
Yeah, right. I love your worship team so much. I like that visual. It's just very stripped back.
Yes, very simple. I feel like, Mac, you got the drummer, bass, lead, choir, social. Dude, I'm going to be worshiping with you guys for 2 hours. You guys are just going to be like vibing in the moment. It's going to be good stuff, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was fun. Yeah, dude, drummer was my number one, like a good drummer. Oh my goodness. I can't even find the words. I mean, I think can make or break a set. They can make or break, obviously dynamically in a song, but man, they get people clapping and going and really set.
Right.
I'm with you right there, man. I'm right there with you.
You can get away with a lot of mediocre musicians, but if you have a mediocre drummer, everyone's gonna feel it.
Mm-hmm. Mac, how is it as you're leading worship, taking your intimate personal worship and kind of using that as showing, or as a worship leader, sometimes I feel like you have to some moments take intimate moments of your worship life and all of a sudden it becomes public? Is that something that you've found to be useful, or do you like to keep more of your like, hey, I just had a really cool Mac worship moment personally, that you like to kind of keep that to yourself? Is that a healthy practice, or do I need to, what do you think?
I mean, I think for me, those intimate moments or those like personal moments mostly will just come out in my songs.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I see that being the outlet for that is in the songs that I'm writing. And then when I'm leading, I very much see what I do as a worship leader is like I am leading the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and I am leading people to a heightened awareness of God. I'm leading people into just being present with Jesus. And so I see it for me as like a leadership role, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that's not just like a title. It feels like it's a leadership role. And so I feel I'm very present with people, very, I don't know. I lead with my eyes open, kind of scanning the room all the time and making eye contact with people and trying to connect, just even like a simple connection, them looking to me, us looking to God together, reminding them like, this is why we're doing this. This is what this experience is about right now. It's about giving glory to God. And so, yeah, I very much lead from that space.
There is this unknown element as a worship leader sometimes, right? Like as you are pressing in and leading these songs, to be able to recognize like when the Spirit's moving, or maybe one side of the room is just really kind of in this space. Like there is this unknown element as a worship leader that is always like, ooh, all right, here we go. It's kind of fun. Like,
right.
It's like,
you don't know what it's going to feel like. You don't know if people are going to be responding. And there is like I do feel like the weight of I do need to navigate the atmosphere. And if there is a tension in the atmosphere, or if there's like
one line that really connects.
Or something like I have to steward that. And I do have to challenge people. If everybody's disengaged, I need to be aware of that and try to direct it. I've also learned that I have to be released from any sort of pressure of needing a response, of needing to see people with all their hands raised and their eyes closed. And like, I've learned to release that type of pressure, but I do think it is part of our job to navigate the atmosphere and to figure out like, all right, do I need to change what we're doing right now? Do I need to be more patient? Do I need to live in this space a little bit longer to bring people in? So it is always kind of fun. You don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, that's kind of exhilarating and terrifying at the same time.
Yes.
Week in and week out. And we pray for like God to move and the Spirit to move. And I'm not sure what like your experiences were like. Like we have our service order that we are like, hey, this is our like quote unquote plan for the morning, that like after this moment's done, then we're going to transition to this like element. And then after that, but that kind of time, it could be 25 minutes. It could be 45 minutes. It could be 12 minutes. It could, it just kind of leaving that up in the air. But that's our prayer, is that, hey, God, these are our plans. Like we just commit them to you, like come and wreck us and have your way.
Yeah.
We would love nothing else.
I'm very much about planning it all, practicing, making sure all your ducks are in a row. And then if the Lord wants to change all that, I feel like you're more equipped to do that when you're a little bit like when you're over prepared or you're more prepared. Then if you got to throw that out the window, I feel like you're better equipped to navigate those spaces.
I want to talk about your podcast, Good at Sports podcast. So it's just you and we're talking about sports.
Yeah. So basically, Josh Baldwin, he's a close friend of mine. He's a worship leader out of Bethel and great songwriter. He actually just released a new album, Where the Glory Is. That's amazing. Plugging that real quick.
Oh, I can put that in the show notes. We've been friends for years. He's a fellow North Carolinian. He lives in Tennessee now, but we're in so many group chats, like, on our phone, but it's all sports related. It's all, we're just big fans,
very casual fans. I'm not a sports journalist. I don't know most of the stuff that I should know if I'm hosting a sports podcast, but we thought, why not just have fun with this thing?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's been a blast.
So wait, there is a worship leader group chat,
Yes.
but you guys just talk about sports.
But all we're talking about is the Carolina Panthers or the NBA or UFC. It's just
that's-
all that. Yeah.
You don't have to drop names. How large is this group chat? Now I'm curious.
Well, there's several group chats. That's the thing is there's, different group chats for different sports, and there's one about golf with a lot of worship leaders because golf is huge with worship leaders right now.
Okay.
Minus myself. I'm not a golfer. I'm horrible. It's depressing. But yeah, it's a bunch of different people with different different things.
That's incredible. So you're a Panthers fan?
Big Panthers fan.
Okay.
Sadly, this year has been a little, it's been a bumpy ride, but
our fates have intertwined, Mac. I was a Browns fan. I'm a huge Browns fan.
I saw that you disavowed them.
Yes. When I really struggled with the Watson stuff, and we as a family got together and we decided that, hey, we're not going to follow the Browns anymore. And my daughter's 7, and so that was a really teachable moment. We didn't go into full detail, but it's like, hey, this blah, 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 blah. And so we went around and got all of our Brown stuff in a tote, which he thought was hilarious. But we traded you guys Baker Mayfield, and that didn't really work out that well.
It didn't work out.
No.
It was, and I was hyped when we signed Sam Darnold, and I was like, all right, this is it. When we signed Baker Mayfield, I was hyped. I was like, all right, this is it. And it's just an endless stream of disappointment. So can I ask you though, for you,
yes,
did you, when you kind of had your Browns funeral, did you also have a welcome party for a new team?
No.
Do you have a new team right now?
Nope, Mac. We haven't. I've watched maybe 2 series of NFL this year. I quit playing fantasy football. I was in 3 leagues. I was in a league with a bunch of pastors from North Carolina. That was 12 years, no longer. I was in a fantasy league.
So you're kind of out right now.
Fantasy league from middle school. A bunch of my middle school friends. Dude, out of that, it is, just kind of done.
Huh.
Done. But dude,
that's interesting to me.
Let me tell you,
because I feel like I wish, we talk about this a lot on our podcast, that we wish, I struggle with raising my kids to become Panthers fans. If I'm just setting them up for disappointment.
No way. I got them
because we're Hornets fans too. And
yes.
I'm just like, what am I doing? Am I just,
No. I did not care. I did not care that I was raising kids that were going to be Browns fans, that were going to suffer and be made fun of. Maybe not so much now that we're in Columbus, Ohio, but no, man, I loved, we would get a pizza after church and we'd watch the game and cheer. And it was, oh man, one of my favorite memories was when the Browns beat the Steelers in the wild card game and we just crushed them. We were running around our basement,
Baker Mayfield.
screaming, heck yeah, screaming so loud, laughing, having the time of our life. And that was so fun. I'll tell you what's made it easy.
It feels like it would be exhilarating though, to be like, all right, no more Browns in our life.
It's embarrassing how hard
for as a family.
It's embarrassing how hard it was. I lived, breathed football for years. It was probably too much of a part of my life, to be honest. Right.
Right.
But the Cleveland Guardians being so young and so good helped, and the Cleveland Cavs that are just, so that really helps a lot, being able to divert my attention. And I cover the Cavs. I'm going to the game on Monday. They play the Hawks. I'm going to cover the team there. So that makes it a lot easier than just I love the
Cavs. I'm a big Cavs fan. I'm a big LeBron fan.
Yeah.
So I've been a fan of LeBron for years and loved him when he was first with the Cavs, then with the Heat, then back with the Cavs. I actually flew up to Cleveland for his homecoming game.
Oh, that is so cool.
2016.
Yeah.
No, 2015.
Uh-huh.
Or no, dang. I guess that was 2014. Wow. Yeah, because the start of the season, 2014.
We
I
won
flew
in
up
16.
to Cleveland. Yeah, but 14-15 was his first year
Yes.
back. That's the season that I went to his opening game. But y'all do have a really good team this year.
We have a really good team.
And started out very, very strong. I don't know. Did
Five.
y'all
So we're
did y'all
recording.
win last night?
No, we didn't. We're recording this on November 17th. We have a 5-game losing streak. We just talked to the Bucks.
Yes.
We play your Hornets on Saturday.
Yeah,
I
so
think.
that'll probably get you back on track. That's gonna get you. Yeah,
LaMelo's back.
that's gonna be the spark that you need.
I don't know.
No,
LaMelo's-
he hurt him. He hurt himself last night.
No.
He stepped on a fan's foot and re-injured his ankle. So I don't know how bad it is. They haven't said if he's gonna be out, multiple games or anything. But I'd be surprised if he was playing.
I did not
at
know
the Cavs
that.
game.
Oh man, dude, no, I wouldn't feel bad at all, man. Hornets fan, no, just have fun, man.
No, we do. Yeah, I really do. We do have a lot of fun, and I don't really feel bad, but sometimes it would be nice to raise my kids as winners and to and to say we are,
I mean, they learn perseverance, man. It's a lot of just like Christian values there. You got to stick with them, loyal. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
a lot.
Right.
Well, Mac, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast. And that does it for this episode of the Chase Smith Podcast. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. You can follow us online at Press Play Pods. Visit our website at pressplaypodcast.com to keep up with all of our shows, network news, and sponsorship information. If you enjoyed today's episode and you haven't subscribed, would just do me a solid subscribe. And if you're really feeling friendly, a 5-star review does literally nothing for the podcast other than it helps other people checking it out. Maybe they want to check it out again. Mac, check out Mac's podcast, Good at Sports with Mac and Josh. Check that out. Mac, what else can we plug here, man? What else we got coming?
I'm in a resting season, so I'm done traveling for the year, and so I'm just kind of spending time with the family. So nothing to plug right now. I'm just kind of hanging until the start of 2023.
Well, we'll plug Good at Sports for sure, because that'll be great.
It's all Good at Sports right now. Yeah,
I have a lot of friends in the North Carolina area so I'll make sure that that your links in the show notes. We'll put it whenever I post about it, so they can check that out. Mac, thank you so much, man. This was just such a cool moment for me as a worship leader, but I love talking with you. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, love meeting you, Chase. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.